Hello, and welcome to the Using the Memo or App and Probe video. My name is Anne England, and in this video I'm going to talk you through the process of completing work or checklists using the Checkit Memo or App and Probe. I'm going to start by introducing you to the devices that you will be using. I'll then log in to show you around the work screen. I'll complete 3 scheduled checklists, one of which will include taking temperatures using the Checkit Probe. I'll then complete a piece of ad hoc or unscheduled work before I log out. Before you start, you'll need a handheld device, and you'll either have a Checkit Memo or you'll be using the app on one of your own devices. You'll need a login name and a 4-digit PIN. If you don't know these details, please speak to your supervisor who will be able to help you. You may also have probes that you'll use for taking temperatures. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the handheld device. You may be using one of the devices from Checkit called the Memo, or you may be using the app which is installed on a phone or tablet. The device is there for you to complete work or checklists on. It connects using Wi-Fi, and this connection will be established when the device is initially set up. The work itself is created and then downloaded to the device from a platform called the Control Center. When work is due or overdue, you'll get a visual and a sound notification. Any work that is scheduled will display in the due section, and you'll have a block of time in which to complete that work. As soon as the checklist is started, it will move up into the incomplete section. If the checklist has not been completed in its entirety by the time the clock runs out, then it will move up into the red overdue section, and an alert will be sent to the supervisor of the team. The probes are used to take temperatures of food and water. They come in 2 colours, blue and red. What you use them for is up to you, but you may, for example, choose to use the red probe for hot items and blue for cold. The probe connects via Bluetooth, and you connect it when the device asks you to. This means that you don't have to worry about switching it on and off. When taking temperatures, the screen on the device will display in green if a temperature is in range, or red if it is not. Now I'm going to log into the device to complete my work. The first thing I can see is that the screen is flashing. The orange screen tells me that work is due, and the green screen displays the name of the team that the work has been assigned to. You may also hear a sound notification. Now tap the screen to wake it up. You'll now see the login screen with a list of login names. Find and press your login name from the list, followed by your 4-digit PIN. The scheduled work screen will now open, and you can see it's broken down into 4 categories. At the bottom we have Up Next. This is a read-only section which lists the checklists that are coming up in the next 2 hours or earlier. You can't start them until they move up into the due section. They are there for information only. Moving up is the green due section. This section will only contain scheduled work. Scheduled work will appear on the device at its start time, and you're given a block of time in which to complete it. And you can see how long that is by looking at the time under the clock on the left. The work will be listed in time order, so the checklist that has the shortest amount of time left on the clock will appear at the top. If they all have the same amount of time on the clock, then the checklists would appear alphabetically. Moving up, we have the yellow incomplete section, which shows you the names of the checklists that have been started but not completed. And finally, we have the red overdue section. Checklists will only move up here if the work has not been completed by the time the clock runs out. You may be given some extra time to complete the work, in which case a new timer will appear telling you how long that is. Note that if the work does reach this section, then an alert will automatically be sent to the supervisor of the team by email. Okay, so that's the work screen. Now we're going to complete the scheduled work. In this next section, the 3 checklists that I'm going to show you are a sample using different styles, so they may not be the same as the ones that you were using. But please do stick with me because you may pick up some useful tips along the way. The first is my daily opening checks, and I'm going to show it to you in two different formats. The first one shows an example in its most straightforward form, the second with some tweaks and improvements. In my third example, I'm going to complete some temperature checks. So let's start with the first daily opening checklist, and I tap to open it. I'll now see a list of checks to complete. Any checks with a blue circle are mandatory, and any with a question mark are optional. So let's start at the top, and I tap to open. You'll see the heading at the top, and any information about the check or what you need to do is displayed below. And this may be very short, or it could contain a lot of information, but it's best to keep it concise yet informative. To complete the check, press Confirm. The check has now been flagged with a tick to show that it's been completed. I then repeat the process with the next one. Tap the check, read the instructions if there are any, and then confirm to complete. And then the next one. Tap the check, read any instructions, and then confirm to complete. I'm just going to complete the next 3 mandatory checks. This next comments check is optional, and I know it's optional because it has a question mark against it. In this example, the only reason I would complete a comments check is if I had any comments to make. Let's say that I do. Let's say that I ran out of soap, and that I also found a problem when I was checking the fire exits because one of the exits was blocked. When I open the check, I can see that I'm asked to provide details of the problem, while I've actually got 2 problems, so I guess I'll need to add them both here. I'm going to type 1, ran out of soap, and 2, blocked exit. Not ideal, but we're going to see later how we can make the process of adding multiple comments a little bit easier. OK, confirm to complete the check. Now with this last check, we can see that it says on-duty manager sign-off, but Eve is an operator, so she shouldn't really be the one completing that check. In this scenario, Eve will leave that one for the manager, but there isn't actually anything stopping her from completing it, either in error or otherwise. We're going to see how this signing off element can be improved in the next example, so I'm going to leave that one there. Now it's time to reflect and look back at how the team have been getting on because they've been using it for a while now. They've become used to it, which is great, but now they're starting to find little niggles and have asked me if I can make some changes. And these are the changes they've asked me to make. Can we make the safety precautions check optional? They know them well, but they think it might be a good idea to keep them there for new people. Can I add multiple comments? Can checks have yes or no answers instead of just confirming? Can we take photos? And finally, can we stop the operators from completing the manager's check? All of those are valid questions, and the answer to all of them is yes. So having made those changes, let's see what the checklist looks like now. First, the safety precautions check. I've done 3 things to it. I've made it optional, the question mark, so they can read it if they need to. I've also made it repeatable, the little arrow, which means that they can read it as many times as they like. When I open it, you'll also see another change that I've made, which is to link the manual, and they can view the manual by clicking on the hyperlink, which is the word here. I think that's a really nice touch. I can use the little arrow at the bottom to move to the next page and then back again, and then if I want to go back to the check, I just press the back-facing arrow. When I press confirm, what you'll now see is a number here and not a tick. This is because it's a repeatable check and it's showing me how many times the check has been completed. If I complete it again, the count will increase to 2 and so on, and there's no limit to the amount of times you can read or complete it. Next is the pest activity check. I've changed that to a yes or no answer. I either say it's checked OK or not. If I say checked OK, then the check is complete, but if I say problem found, followed by confirm, then I'll be asked to provide details of the problem. This is called a follow-up check. You can also see some additional text beneath the text line. I've added that as a prompt to remind users that they can take a photo if it helps by pressing the blue paperclip. So let's say I found some ants. I can enter text and take a photo by pressing the paperclip, add photo to open the camera, and then take my photo by pressing the green camera button. If it helps, you can also draw on the screen by pressing the pen at the bottom and use your finger to draw. Once you're happy, press the green tick or press the cross to cancel. You can now see that one photo has been attached to the check, so I'll just press confirm to complete it. The next check I was asked to change is the comments. In the first example, I had to write about 2 separate issues on the same text line. I've now changed that, so it's optional and repeatable. This means that I can complete it if I need to, and I can add as many comments as I like. Finally, the on-duty manager sign-off. This is now a role-based check. What that means is that the check can only be completed by a person with a specific role. So if the check is greyed out, it means that they don't have the rights to complete it. And if they do try to complete it, they'll see a message saying that they don't have the rights, but it will also tell them who does. I'm now going to log out as Eve by pressing the 3 dots, and then log out, and log out again. From the login screen, you can see that Annie has the role of on-duty manager, in italics under her name. When I log in as Annie, we can pick up the checklist from the incomplete section, and we can see that the check at the bottom is not greyed out because Annie has the correct role, which means that she can complete the check. So let's complete that final check. Press I'm done, and that will then render the checklist complete and it will drop off the list. Next up is the third temperature checks checklist. In this next example, I'm going to complete some temperature checks. If I open the checklist, you can see that I'm presented with a list of food items, and at first glance I can see that they are all optional, the question mark, and repeatable, the little arrow. The reason why they're all optional is because we don't know what will be on the menu today, but one thing we do know is that at least 3 of these things should be cooked today. To make sure we capture the temperature of something, what we've done is to say that you must take the temperature of at least one thing. And we know that it needs to be at least one thing because I can see one up here alongside the optional check button. What this means is that even though everything appears to be optional, what we're actually doing is forcing the user to complete at least one optional check, but it could be more if you wanted. In addition, behind the scenes, I've scheduled this checklist to appear 3 times a day, and each time they have to take at least one temperature. So by the end of the day, 3 temperature checks should have been completed unless there was nothing to probe. We can see that this is an option at the bottom here. Okay, so let's do the first temperature check. I'm going to need a red probe, and I know that I need a red probe because I can see the red probe icon here. If it was in blue, then I would need a blue probe, and it would be grey if I was able to use any colour. I'm going to take the temperature of the beef first, so I press beef, and it's asking me to take a red probe and press its button once. There is only one button on the probe, so I press that to connect or pair the probe with the device. When it connects, it will vibrate in my hand. Next, I take the temperature, so that may be inserting the probe in or against the product, and I press the button again to take the temperature. If the temperature is in range, the screen will turn green and we can see what the acceptable range is here. Note that this is a fictitious range for training purposes. If I'm happy with that reading, I can press the record button, followed by accept or retake. If I choose the retake option, then the previous reading will still be recorded and visible in the work report. I'm going to accept to complete the check. What I can now see is that the I'm done button appears at the bottom. Because I have honoured the rules of the check, which was to take at least one temperature. I can, however, take more. So I'm going to show you the process again by taking the temperature of the lamb products. I press the product, It asks me to take my red probe and press the button once. This time the screen displays in red because the temperature is out of range. I record the temperature and I can either retake or accept. As soon as I do, I'm presented with another screen with a corrective action and I'm being asked to either carry on cooking or destroy the product. I'm going to choose carry on cooking it and confirm. I don't want to complete the checklist yet because I have to come back and take another temperature, so I'm going to go off and do that and then come back later. 15 minutes later, I come back to take the temperature again, so I log into the device. I can now see that my temperature check checklist has moved into the incomplete section, so I'm going to pick it up from there and I need to retake the lamb, and I'm able to do that because it's a repeatable check. So I select the product, take the probe, press this button once, insert the probe into the product, press the button again to retake the temperature. This time the reading is in range, so I'm happy to accept. The checklist has now been completed, so I can press the I'm done button at the bottom and the checklist will be removed from the list. The last thing I want to show you is unscheduled work. So this is work that you do on an ad hoc basis. A popular example of unscheduled work is deliveries. From the work screen, you pick the checklist you want by pressing the square button at the bottom left of the screen. From the list, choose the checklist that you want. I'm going to choose delivery checks. The checklist immediately opens because it expects you to use it now. If you don't want to complete it now, or if you pick the wrong one, then you can pick a different one by pressing the button again, or cancel it without completing any checks by pressing the clock. I'm going to pick the same one back up. It immediately opens and I'll complete its first check, which is supplier. In this example, I have a list to pick from, which is much easier than typing it in. As soon as I complete that first check, it goes to the incomplete section, and I can carry on from there. Any checklist that I complete in this way will never appear in the due section because it's unscheduled. You may also notice that the clock has no time against it, which means that it will never go into an overdue state. It will stay in the incomplete section until such time that you finish it. Now, if I have nothing more to do, I can log out, and in case you missed it earlier, I can do that by pressing the 3 dots at the bottom right, press log out, and then log out again. So that's it. You've now completed the Using the Memo or App and Probe video. I hope you found the session useful, and thank you for watching.